Did you know that there's a bonus pool on the ATP Tour? Meaning that if you play a certain amount of ATP 500s and you do well, you get more money at the end of the year. Well, not only at ATP 500s, but also at ATP 1000s, there's a bonus pool of $21 million that players can get if they play all the Masters 1000 tournaments. So there is an incentive there, but it goes a little bit deeper than that because players can play as many tournaments as they want, of course, but only 19 tournaments count towards their ranking and 20 if you count the ATP finals. So obviously, the ATP wants to pretend players just stacking up tournaments and stacking up points and inflating their ranking points that way. So not all tournaments count. Only your 19 best, including the ATP finals. Now, when it comes to certain tournaments, they are mandatory. So if you decide to skip one of these required Masters Series tournaments, there are 8 of them. This tournament, even though you didn't play it, will count as one of your 19 tournaments and you will get 0 points. So the ATP obviously has incentives so that players play as much as possible, especially regarding the big tournaments. And I want to go back to the Petkovic Becker podcast. That's, by the way, in German. So if you speak German, you can watch this. If not, I think there's a button on the YouTube player where you can translate a video. But in this podcast, Boris Becker said something so smart. And basically, he said that players complain about the schedule being too jam-packed and the schedule being too long. But then they jam up their schedule with a tremendous amount of tournaments. And I think he's 100% right. You can't complain about the schedule being too long and then play tournaments that you possibly don't have to play. You have to be smart when it comes to scheduling. Now, when we're talking about lower ranked players, I don't blame these players for playing all year long because they make a living from playing tournaments. But regarding the top players, Becker made an additional point, and he said that if you get out of the bonus pool for the Masters 1000 tournaments, maybe you even get a hit on your ranking from that 0-pointer, you can make up the ranking because you're going to be fresher, you're going to be working on your game and possibly performing better because you're more prepared. And you can make up the lost money from that bonus pool by playing a few exhibitions after the seasons. And you have to understand that there's a big difference between the Labor Cup, the Six King Slam, and a true exhibition. Even those tournaments, Labor Cup and Six King Slam, are not like real tournaments regarding the pressure that players go through from a mental standpoint. In my opinion, they are playing full out. But when it comes to a true exhibition where it doesn't matter who's going to win. Maybe sometimes the result is prearranged. You're going to win the first set, I'm going to win the second set, so that the crowd gets a longer match. These type of matches are easy on the body. The risk of injury in these type of matches is close to zero because players do have the ability to gauge their intensity levels. And also there's 0.0 pressure in matches like this. So it is harmless for the players to compete in exhibitions. And like Becker said, the other tournaments that players are signing up for are absolutely exhausting. And if you decide to skip some, if you build your schedule more smartly, you're actually going to end up making more money and your rankings going to be higher anyway because you're going to perform better at the most important tournaments. I thought that Boris Becker made an excellent point. And I do believe that we're seeing this from Sinner and Alcaraz this year. The tournament directors are complaining about this, but these two guys, the two most important players on the ATP Tour, can call the shots and can show other players how it's done by being very selective about which tournament they play. And some tournaments will unfortunately suffer. Davis Cup is one of them because it's happening at the end of the year, and Sinner got Italy 2 titles, and Italy can't be mad for Sinner looking to protect his body and give himself a little bit more rest compared to last year. Another tournament that is going to suffer a lot is the Canada Masters, because I do believe that if Sinner and Alcaraz play the Roland Garros final and the Wimbledon final, it makes a lot of sense to skip that one and then show up in Cincinnati. Now, 6 months ago, I made a video discussing whether tennis is in trouble. And in this video, I made the point that the schedule is only too long for the top players and the ones who are going very deep in tournaments, because you have to understand that one of the most important things when it comes to the game of tennis is confidence. And how do you get confidence? Well, is by winning tennis matches. So if players are going deep in tournaments like Sinner and Alcaraz, they of course are going to be more selective on which tournaments they play because they have a lot of that mental pressure that they're dealing with, and they need time to just decompress and, quite frankly, just relax, and they need to give their bodies time to heal. But what about those top players that lose in the first round, the second round of a slam, like Zverev, in many occasions this year, or Medvedev? Do you see Medvedev's schedule after his first round US Open loss? He played nonstop. So not all top players are the same because it depends how deep they go in the previous tournament. So when we look at the tennis draw, understand that obviously half of the draw is gone by the first round. Half of the players that enter the tournament, they only play one match that they lost. It's a horrible feeling when that happens to you at any level of the game, but especially at the top level where you're making a living from tennis. And what do you want to do? Well, of course, you want to go to the next tournament that's possibly next week, and you want to make money, number one, but you also want to build confidence and maybe win the first round. So understand that we don't want to necessarily shorten the calendar because the calendar has been the same for many years. Yes, there are some new tournaments like the 10th Masters that, similar to Monte Carlo, is not mandatory, so it's not going to matter that much in my opinion if players choose to skip it. But the season has always been like this. I, just out of curiosity, looked at the tennis calendar from 30 years ago, 1996, and guess what? The season started in the beginning of January and it ended in December. And guess what? Back in those days, they even had an exhibition tournament called the Grand Slam Cup, kind of similar to the Six King Slam. It was unbelievable money back in the day. This tournament didn't count for ranking points, but I think the winner got $2 million, which is unheard of back in those days. These are the 90s. So the season was basically the same. On top of that, players back in those days played best of 5 in the Masters finals. Now, why are players complaining today and they weren't complaining back then? Well, of course, tennis has changed. Just go on YouTube and look up old matches. You're going to see that the intensity of play is lower the further back you go in time. No doubt about it. It's a more physical game. It's a higher intensity game. Guys are hitting the ball harder. And it's, of course, harder on the body now than it has been. No doubt about that. To add insult to injury, the balls have been made more dead and players are suffering a lot. So it is true that maybe the schedule now is too long and it's just close to impossible to play the whole year without getting some physical problems. But I do think that the schedule is perfect in a sense where the entire year is built towards that ATP finals, and you just can't put the ATP finals right after the US Open and then have tournaments after the ATP finals that don't count towards the ATP finals. It would, in my opinion, completely ruin the calendar. So the solution is very simple, and that's get rid of the mandatory events, something that will never happen, okay? Because the ATP put those incentives there so that the top players show up at the most important tournaments. If you go back to the Toronto tournament, the tournament director was so upset that Sinner and Alcaraz didn't show up this year, and he was pleading with them to please show up next year. So it's in the players' hands. If they're willing to take the hit points-wise and get the 0-pointers, if they're willing to take the hit financially for being excluded from that bonus pool, which, by the way, a lot of money, but compared to the Six King Slam, and not really that much money, and Becker is 100% right, they can make up that money that they lose in the bonus pool. So it's in the players' hands. They have to just start skipping tournaments whenever they want to save their body and just take those ranking hits and the financial hits that are not really hits at all when you think about it. Guys, if you haven't yet subscribed to Intuitive Tennis, also hit the like button. If you want to support Intuitive Tennis, you can subscribe to Intuitive Tennis Premium. Go to intuitivetennis.com on your browser, or you can even get the Intuitive Tennis app. And on Premium, I just released a new course called The Role of the Elbow, with some very important videos regarding how the elbow functions and all the strokes with its forehand, backhand, serve, and everything else. And I also talk about tennis elbow, something that I actually had trouble with this year, and now I'm completely pain-free. So click the link in the pinned comment and subscribe to Intuitive Tennis Premium. I will see you guys in the next video.